Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead of them and their companies. I'm your host, Olivia Sammons, and in each episode, we'll uncover the stories behind successful startups, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we're super excited to have Steve Jones joining us, the founder of Skills for Business Training Ltd, a leadership and performance training company dedicated to helping organizations build motivated teams, effective leaders, and encouraged cultures. With a career that began scaling Fitness First PLC into Europe's largest health club chain, followed by senior roles in Shurlows International before launching his own firm, Steve brings decades of experience in motivation, coaching, and high performance leadership to the table. So Steve, very warm welcome to Founders Future. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Olivia. It's a delight to be here. So thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. It's a pleasure having you here. So I like to start everything at the beginning. So can you take us back to before you started your company and then what you was doing beforehand that motivated you to get everything on the run?
Absolutely. So my background was health and fitness management. So as you mentioned already, I was with Fitness First PLC when we started with one. So I was part of the leadership team. So we started with one club on the South Coast, and we ended up being the largest independent health club chain within 7 years. So we went through the AIM, the full listing, and we were opening a club a week at 1.2 worldwide. So it was fast growth in all its nightmares and all its glories. It was really fantastic to experience. But when the city got hold of it in about 2001, I think it was, it lost its magic a little bit for me because it became a bit of a reporting process. And I'll talk about the motivations, and it didn't motivate me at all to be a part of something that was just very mechanical rather than very people orientated as it had been previously. So I became that disengaged, highly skilled employee that voted with my feet and left. I took my share options. I took a bit of time out, so I was walking up down the seafront near where I live with my Jack Russell looking like a hobo, thinking, what do I do next? And I thought about it. I thought about it. I thought I could probably help companies with their growth, having been through the growth spurt myself. So I started coaching companies on growth. And then I was approached by an international coaching organization called Shurlows that specialize in fast growth businesses. I spent 3 years with them with my clients when they came to the UK from Australia. I looked at all their tools, methodologies, and techniques, and it mapped perfectly my fitness first journey. So I had both the skills and the toolkit. And it was great fun, but I identified whilst I was working with them that was an area I felt they didn't cover. And that was, look, if you're going to grow a company fast, you've got to attract and keep talent. You've got to get the motivations right. You've got to get the leadership right. And I didn't think it was addressing those areas. So I stepped away, started to look at motivation in business, leadership issues in business. I didn't know it was called employee engagement at the time, but that's what it was called. And then I got a phone call from a friend of mine who was working in London with the task force team that were looking at employee engagement. So I was invited onto the task force team in London. I spent about 3 years with them co-chairing it, and we were looking at companies that were getting it right, how they were harnessing key individuals in organizations and how they were keeping and attracting talent and what they were doing different to other organizations. And we were finding this really a real rich sense of information around what they were doing differently, but nobody was really doing anything with it. So I decided I would set up a presentation around it to start to talk to companies. And I went down to the Vitality Stadium at Bournemouth. I presented it to a bunch of business owners. There were two people in the room that immediately said, we need this for our organization. I spent a year with each of those companies. They both went on to win awards and be sold. So I knew I had something. And there were four main themes around what those companies were doing differently to other companies. So it was exciting. And I realized that I could help other companies. And at the heart of that sits a tool I use, which is a motivational mapping tool, which looks at what drives and motivates individuals and how you get the best out of people. And it's not personality based, it's why you get out of bed, why you're coming to work, what you're looking for, which I use with coaches. I train coaches in it, and I also use it for myself with teams and organizations to get the productivity and engagement right in their organization so they can scale, can grow, and can keep their talent. So I think that probably explains my journey pretty much, I think, and why I do what I do.
Yeah, amazing stuff. And I do want to dive into the business itself. So
Yeah.
can you walk us through the listeners and maybe describe what you actually do with them? I know you touched on a bit there that you do coaching for coaches within businesses as well. So what would it be like to work with you?
Okay, so typically I'm interested. I started off with a lot of startups, and I wrote my first book, Turning On Your Profits Tap, to help startup companies understand how to generate revenue quite simply and quite easily by thinking more contextually rather than getting wrapped up in the detail, thinking about being a business owner, not a technician, and all the things involved in designing strategy and growth. But I realised where my talents probably lay were in actually getting the best out of teams. Because previous to being in the fitness industry, I was a sports coach as well, so it was all about performance. So I moved my operation to fast growth businesses that were growing rapidly, but actually didn't have the tools to grow. That needed to put where the business owner moved from an entrepreneur to a business owner, and then they had to build teams and they had to scale their organizations, put systems and processes in. So I tend to come in when they're fast growth, when they've flipped, they suddenly become successful and they become a
Mm-hmm.
victim of their success, and they can't really grow because actually they become inefficient because
Yep.
what they used to do doesn't work in the new environment of fast growth. So it's to help companies to understand that fast growth and understand actually this is when you're going to start to lose staff that have been with you, key staff, because actually their motivations are going to be impacted, like mine was when Fitness First changed hands, and what to do to maintain those individuals. So I go in on I look at teams, but I've got a leadership program. So I have a 4-day leadership program we deliver over 3 or 4 months. And we look at the strategy. Where are you going to be in 3 years from now? Where are you going to be 2 years from now, 1 year from now? And what's your breakthrough plan? And what are
Yeah.
your values? I then look at day two, we look at understanding people, which is the motivations, the personalities, and the values, so that you understand who you're managing. And then day three looks at leadership itself. What is leadership versus management, leadership styles and leadership mindsets, and how you get the best out of teams. And then day four, we look at actually transformation and change, because there'll be fast growth businesses. They'll have to deal with change. And how do you spot the performance issues? Is it a can't do or won't do? And then how do you get people back on track, and how do you coach teams? So that's a 4-day leadership program. And then I do interventions with companies as well. So I've just started to work with a couple of companies right now where we're looking at the culture of the organization. So we're looking at fast tracking the culture to keep pace. So when a company grows, the culture gets left behind because new demands on the business come in. So how do we keep that vibrant culture that an SME has when it starts, when it becomes a bit more mature? How do we keep the talent? How do we grow? And so then I developed a 90-day appraisal process to put into the organizations for people, not for business. So we look at harnessing the skills and capabilities of people every 90 days. We look at the motivations to make sure they're still matched to the organization. And if they're not, how do we adjust and get the best out of people? Because
Mm-hmm.
one of the key things to growth is keeping and growing your talent. So that's the kind of thing I'm focusing on right now. And we'll talk about where I'm going to take my business, as we will in the third part of this a bit later. But that's where I sit. So I'm working with established SMEs to help them manage that growth
Nice.
effectively, efficiently, and profitably. If that makes sense.
Amazing. Yeah, completely. And it is an impactful thing as you grow to keep that team and the core values within the business
Yeah,
structured. As you add people and people move around, as you say, people get frustrated often and move on. It's life. So completely get
yeah.
the importance of it. So in terms of your kind of ideal customer and who you enjoy working with, small business leaders, individual coaches, is it across all sectors or do you have a specific kind of area as well that you
No,
focus on?
what I do applies to any business that's fast growth. So I don't tend to pick sectors. It works in any sector, to be honest with you,
Amazing.
efficiently, because they've all got the same challenges of actually keeping and growing their talent as they move forward. What I did do when I started to recognise what was going on with organisations, I wrote another. My third book I wrote was How to Become an Employer Choice. So we look at actually, if you're an employer choice, what are you doing differently to companies that aren't? And I created a wheel of engagement, which is a 2-minute assessment, which is a perception tool, which helps organisations look at, okay, where are we and where should we be? And it's something they can use with their teams as well, because everybody in the business will have a different idea of whether the business is an employer choice. And then
Mhm.
in that, there's 12 elements to the questions I ask. I can take you through those elements if you wish, if it helps your listeners. So basically, if you look at being an employer choice, which is where you want to get, so you can attract and keep talent. you have to have a great story about where you've come from, where you're going. And most
Yeah.
companies talk about what they do and how they do it. They don't talk about their story.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing. And an employee will look for a company with a great story. What is it about this company over and above what they do that really excites me? And then you're getting people in who've got passion rather than just coming in for a job. The second thing is, does the leadership team have a 3-year vision for the organization? Because it has a 3-year vision for the organization. When staff join the organization, they can start to see how they can stay with the organization and grow and where the opportunities are. If you don't have that, they're just coming in for a job. And then is that story and vision totally communicated? That's the next thing. And that's internally, externally. Do all your staff know it? Do your customers know it? Is it part of your induction process? And then the grey area usually is, do you have engaging managers? Now, and leaders usually end up in those roles by default. They're either promoted into those roles without the skill set. So across an organization, you're going to get a variance of good and bad leaders. And that means that people don't quit their jobs, they quit their bosses a lot of the time. So you got to think about, you don't want people quitting their bosses simply because they aren't trained. So what does a good leader look like? Do those leaders motivate and stretch those individuals? Is their management by walking around? And then Richard Branson will tell you that he employs people to tell him what to do. So have you got a listening culture in your organization? Or do you employ talent and then just dictate to it, which a lot of companies do? So they're not
Yeah.
harnessing those ideas. Then the values, you mentioned the values earlier. Do we have a set of values? Yes, but most companies, if you ask them what they are, they have to go and find them. So they can't really remember them. They don't live and breathe them. So have you got a set of values and do you live and breathe those and bring them to life? Are there consequences and rewards? So I've created a quiz which takes about 2 minutes to do, which challenges all of those thoughts and ideas, produces a wheel of engagement, which enables you to see where you need to put your focus as a team, and
Amazing.
creates great discussion at leadership level and board level because everybody's got a different perception of the business. And I did it with 170 staff in a law firm, and everybody had a different perception of the business based on where they sat in the organization. So it
Yeah.
created a really rich conversation for the company then to take things forward and address issues they needed to address. So I was quite excited by that. And the book has got the quiz in it, and then it's got each chapter refers to one of those questions. So that's the book. So that's one of my latest developments. I wrote that in 2023, I think. I wrote it in 6 months because I needed it for a presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the kind of thing that I'm doing now and get quite excited about. Okay, currently.
That's the current project. So let's talk about the back end of that. Off the end of the program and all that good stuff, do you run the marketing and the sales side of the business as well, or do you have a team that works with you when you go and
Yeah, it's just me really. I work from home, in my home office, do most of it myself. I outsource the stuff I don't like, which is the finance side of business, which I don't enjoy. But the rest of it I tend to do because it's pretty straightforward. I'm quite visual on LinkedIn because I think that's how you found me.
Yep.
And I've got a good referral network and there's very difficult to find good networks, but I found a few good networks as well.
Amazing.
That's,
So do you mind me asking what the networks are and where you found them? So like where are you finding success?
yeah. So for me, when I started my business, I took a different approach to it. I thought I could go networking and just try to do B2B, but I started with what I call my supermarket model. If you look at Kellogg's cornflakes, they don't sell to you and I. They do sell to you and I, but they sell via a supermarket. So
Yeah.
they'll go and create a relationship with the supermarket. The supermarket will put the Kellogg's cornflakes on the shelf and people will come and buy it. So I
Right.
took that philosophy and thought, who are my supermarkets? And they're accountants, lawyers, IT companies. They've got all the clients I want. So I form a relationship with them and offer them a 3-hour workshop for their clients free of charge. And they put
Mhm.
them in a room and I can do what I do for three hours. They're going to work out A, if they like me, or B, if they don't like me. And if they like me, when I talk to them about business, they already know what I do. So it's straight into working with them. So that was my route to market originally, was actually let me do presentations, let me do talks, and then you decide whether you like me and whether what I say makes sense and whether you want to work with me. So that was my marketing process. Okay. And I still use that. And then nowadays, I've got a few clients that actually do what they call directors' lunches and stuff. So you pay to be in the room, but you're with decision makers and the people are chosen to be in the room with you. So it makes the quality of that networking good and it's strong because you're building relationships. Not when I go to most networking, people are just trying to sell to me all the time. I like the networks where people actually are talking to one another as human beings, discussing everything from life to work, where you can work out if there's anything we could do together. So I prefer those relationships. So I don't like selling, I like building relationships.
Nice. Yeah, the personal networking, the personal branding coming through
Yeah.
in all aspects. Have you ever, so you talked about LinkedIn. What do you work on there? Is it mainly just, do you do outbound, inbound, or is it just having your presence on the platform?
I'm pretty awful at outbound stuff and doing 5 phone calls, I'm out the door. So that's the same with, I tried Navigator, but I haven't got the patience for it. Again, it goes back to playing to my strengths. So my strengths are presenting to audiences. So I'll do webinars on there. I do a fortnightly newsletter. So that gets a fair bit of engagement. And I commit to 2 posts per week on something that's topical. Try not to be salesy, something I've done or something I'm thinking about, basically.
Nice. And
Yeah.
then have you ever thought in terms of trying to scale that and move away from referrals about implementing any sort of paid ads or learning how to do
No, I don't really like paying for stuff. I'm a typical
so?
SME tight-fisted. I don't like paying if I can help it. I've tried various things in the past, and I've ended up paying a lot of money to various organisations. And to be honest with you, I don't get the return I think I should. Probably because I don't do what I'm supposed to do, because I'm terrible at following someone else's
Yeah,
process, basically. So it's probably nothing to do with them, everything to do with me. But typically, I try to find my own path now.
fair enough. Love it. We're a coach that is taking the leadership when coaching.
Yeah.
So let's move on to, we did touch on it a minute ago, but your plans for the future. What do the next 12 months
Okay.
look like?
I have a tool called a motivational mapping tool, which I developed into a motivational appraisal system. So if you look at personality, when you look at personality with individuals, when you do a personality profile like Myers-Briggs Insights, ColourWorks, DISC, and Clarify 4D, they tend to look at your personality. And to be honest with you, that's fine, but there's nothing you can do with it. It gives you a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling. And probably people will say there is stuff you can do with it. Yes, it's good for recruitment, but it's got no real sell-on value after you've done it once, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. So if you look at it a different way, I look at motivation, which is why people get out of bed, why they come into work, and what they're looking for. Now, motivation is dynamic and changeable. So we look at the 9 work motivators, and a questionnaire forces people to rank them from 1 to 9 to see which is most important, which is least important. So for someone like me, I like creativity, I like innovation, every day being different. So give me a routine job and I'll hate it. Okay. I like freedom and autonomy, so I don't want to be overloaded with systems and processes. Which is why those people trying to make me do things, follow processes, just drove me mad. And then I like to add value, to do things of value as well. And I like to be an expert. So they're probably my 4 key ones. So I need a job where I can express that and where I can harness it. So the tool identifies what motivates you. Then the question is, how much of that are you currently getting in your current role? And we score it out of 10. And then we come up with a motivational score, which is actually how is the company harnessing your motivation currently? And then for coaches, we create a coaching methodology that helps you understand how to coach to get that person. Say I scored my creativity 7 out of 10. The question would be, what would a 10 look like? And how can we get you there? And what does the business need to do to free you up to be more creative? So it's a really good tool for coaches to get under the skin of people, business owners, teams, to find out what's driving them currently and are we holding them back because of the way we're managing them. And then if we coach them in the right way and release that potential, we're going to get the best out of them and we're going to boost their productivity and their motivation and their commitment to the business. So I recognize that was the case. So rather than it being an intervention, I looked at it like this. Most companies will do a 90 days a sprint for their KPIs for their organization. Now, their staff are their single most expensive item after their capital investment, but they don't do a 90-day sprint for their people. So why don't we look at every 90 days, because motivation gets impacted negatively or positively depending on what the company's doing and outside influences. Just to give you a quick example, if someone's motivated by money, okay, and then suddenly they inherit a fortune or win a fortune, they're not motivated by money the next day.
Yeah.
Equally, if somebody comes to work because they want to be amongst people and the company does a hot desking where they send everybody home, which happened in COVID, suddenly you've demotivated that person who likes to be in a community of people. So businesses do things, they put strategy in place, without realizing the impact on their people and how it can negate or engage. So the idea with the 90-day program is every 90 days, we're going to look at your motivations because they may change, and we're going to make sure we're harnessing those motivations. So I do this with organizations. I set it up on a retainer basis. So they buy the motivational mapping tool off me. They use it in their organizations. I teach that. I license them in the product so they can use it internally, and I train their managers, and then they run it themselves and pay me a monthly retainer. So to your question, what am I going to do in my business next? I want to move more to the retainer part, where I'm getting regular income rather than feast and famine. And this is a great tool because we've got coaches on here. It's a great tool for coaches because actually I teach coaches how to do this with teams and organizations. So they too can get not only residual income, but they could go in and do the coaching required around it because I license them in the product so they can use it as one-offs. They can use it as a process within an organization, and it keeps them engaged with that organization a lot longer. So my focus now is training coaches, in-house practitioners, how to use this process. And in return, I get a monthly retainer, which is not much. It's £15 per head per person I charge. So it's affordable for organizations. And if they're scaling, we can do a bit more on that pricing. So that's the model I'm moving to now. So I'm talking to a client that's got 1,800 ICF coaches. So we're going to do some stuff with them. I'm talking to another coaching organization that's got 200 coaches, just to help those coaches have something in their toolkit that's quite potent, it's quite different, and can keep them engaged with the client a lot longer. So that's the focus going forwards. I want to build that more and support the coaches as much as possible.
Nice. When you say price per head, you charge, is that in terms of the team, the coaches, or
Yeah.
how?
Yeah, so if we do 4 motivational maps a year, which is what they are, we do 4 motivational maps a year. That normally would cost you about £180 for those 4 maps. So rather than pay £180 per person, we just call it £15 per month.
Nice. Yeah, it makes
And
sense.
for that, I get a bit, the coach gets a bit, it cash flows it for the organization. And then I train either the coach to go in and do the work, or I train in-house trainer to do the work, and the managers who might run the appraisal process, which I built to go with it.
Nice. Okay. And
So
what would you say is the biggest challenge in making that all happen at the moment?
the biggest challenge at the moment, there's not really, it's just getting to the audiences really. For me, I'm quite confident it's a tool that coaches can use. I've already got lots of coaches using it. I've got HR professionals using it. I've got L&D people using it. I've got in-house trainers using it. So it's already happening, but I haven't really put my focus on making that the main part of my business. It's been running alongside, if that makes sense. To answer your question, I think it's more focus on it to make it happen.
Yeah, putting your energy fully into it to see it grow and
Yeah,
blossom. Are you
yeah.
planning on trying any form of different tactics to what you've been doing so far in the business in terms of generate
Um,
leads and get the marketing out there, or are you sticking to the
yeah,
process?
I'm sticking to the supermarket process. So I'm looking for organizations that have a whole bunch of coaches that could benefit from this tool.
Yeah.
So the ICF would be one, but I'm not talking to the ICF. I'm talking to a person who has, and I think 1,800 people in her group, her ICF coaching group. So
Mm.
that's a perfect for me. I've got another company, as I said, they've got 200 business coaches that would like this tool, but not all of them are going to want it, but a percentage. So I'm not looking for everybody to join. I'm playing the percentage game, but I'm looking for people who want to work with teams and want to work with organizations around team building. So that can be either in-house or coaches, whichever. So my strategy, in answer to your question, is I'm looking to those organizations that have those individuals so I can run workshops to demo the power of the tool so they can make their mind up whether it's something they'd like to progress with.
Nice. Perfect. And just
Yeah.
to finish it off, we're going to move into a bit of a lightning round. So I'm
Okay.
going for a couple of questions. What would be the best piece of advice that you've received about scaling a business?
The best bit of advice really would be don't ask how I do it, ask who else could do it. Okay. There's a lot of people just think they have to do it. And the second bit of advice, it would be your job as an MD is to make yourself redundant. So you've got to think about actually making yourself redundant so you can be strategic. And also, if you're going to sell your business, if you are the business, there's no value. So make yourself redundant. That requires you to put systems and processes in place and great people. Third bit of advice is coach, don't play. So what most people do is they jump in try and resolve all the issues because it's easier. You're never going to be free if you don't coach. If your coach don't play, you're going to be free. Further bit of advice is manage the energy. Look at what's going on, manage the energy in your organization. And also the last bit of advice is stay in context. Don't get dragged into the day-to-day, stay focused on the strategy.
Awesome. Keep the point and keep looking the horizon and keep going for it.
Yeah. And keep coming back to this is where we're headed, is what we're doing, taking us further away or further towards.
Love it. And I suppose as a final question, to any founders who are listening, coaches that are at the start of their journey, what would be the leaving piece of advice for them as we log out from this episode?
Yeah, differentiate yourself very quickly. Create a great story. I'll just give you an example of when I started and the mistakes I made. So when I started, I left Fitness First. I started saying, I used to work for Fitness First. I'm now a coach. Nobody was interested. Okay.
Yeah.
But to your point, you started the whole thing with my story. When you tell your story about why you left Fitness First, because I was disengaged employee, I felt I don't want anybody else to go through this. There's a purpose and a meaning to what I was doing. I wanted to find the answers. So when a coach starts to talk about why they do what they do and their story, and everybody's got a great story, they just don't tell it a lot of the time.
Yeah.
People buy stories. They don't buy coaching. They can buy it anywhere. They buy your story. They buy you. So position yourself, differentiate yourself would be the thing I would say if you want to get on.
That even goes to what you were saying about in employers all the way through. They need to buy your story as well. It's all comes from the same side.
It all comes. Yeah, it's amazing how many people just remember the first part of what I talk about, the Fitness First journey. So they remember that, and that's what they relate to, and then everything else has validity because you've been there and done it. That's the space you want to get into.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Steve, for sharing your journey, your insight and knowledge with us today. Where can people reach out to work with you or connect if they'd like to do so?
Okay, I'm obviously on LinkedIn, but with a name like Steve Jones, you'll struggle to find me. So it's Steve at, and it's skills for, you can see my badge, it's skills for business training.co.uk, and the website is www.skillsforbusinesstraining.co.uk. And my details are on there, even my mobile, I think, is still on there. So anybody wants to ring me, email me, or go to my website, you can contact me through my website as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future via wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And if you are a business owner, specifically a coach, consultant, or agency owner, and you're really looking to scale your business and you want to enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to hop on a call with one of our team and discover how we were able to go from 0 to 30 million per year in less than 3 years. But until then, keep climbing and we will see you on the next one.